is my answer to whether slavery was a crime. The word we have to pay attention to is was. Was slavery a crime? The answer would be just like gone on YouTube, to give your brain some new food. Hello people, and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time on the channel, a special welcome to you. I ask that you check out the rest of my videos. If you like what you see, give them a thumbs up, leave a comment, but more than anything, I'm asking that you subscribe to the channel. Today, I'm going to be touching what I believe is going to be a touchy topic, because recently in March 2026, the UN assembled to ask a question. Well, I'll get into the technicality of what the UN Assembly was about, but the reason why I'm doing this video is because online, the question that has been transpiring has been, was slavery a crime? And my answer is definitely going to be surprising to a lot of my fellow subscribers, but just have patience with me and let me break down my logics, and I welcome everybody comments in the comment section to see whether they disagree or agree whether slavery was a crime. So before I get into the actual question that the assembly was about in March of 2026, let's address whether slavery was a crime. So here's my answer to whether slavery was a crime. The word we have to pay attention to is was. And if we're saying, was slavery a crime? The answer would be no. Then again, the answer could be yes. Depends on what crimes are we talking about. Are we talking about judicial legal proceeding crimes, or we're talking about a crime against humanity? A crime against humanity has no bearing or binding to do with judicial systems or man-made laws. So was slavery a crime against humanity? Absolutely, 100% yes. And just to touch back at the UN gathering in March, every single country agreed that slavery was a crime against humanity. So for all the misinformation that's being out there that's saying, well, okay, let me get into it now. So the vote went like this. 3 countries says no, 123 countries says yes, and 52 countries abstain from participating in giving an answer. United States of America says no, Israel says no, and Argentina says no. So I saw a lot of people saying Argentina says no because they're racist, and Argentina think they're white, and blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to get on that bandwagon. Which bandwagon I will get on is the one that at the moment, at the current state of the world, anything that America says, Israel is going to say, because Israel is currently kissing America's ass. You know, it's their favorite ally at the moment because of what's going on in Iran. So Israel answer and America answer didn't surprise me. However, if you guys know me and know me well, I'm pro-black. I'm all for my black people, present-day black people, and black people that's passed and gone in history. So I'm all for my black people, but I'm not going to let my race or the preference of my race blind me to a question or a good dialogue with my subscribers, whether they agree with my point or disagree with my point. Here's the thing. So I'm going to declare my answer. Was slavery a crime? A crime against humanity? Yes. A legal crime? No. I'm going to say that again. Was slavery a crime against legal proceedings? No, it was not a crime. At the time, let's focus on the United States of America. There was no written law that was against anybody that was non-white being enslaved. There was no law that says anybody that was non-white should not work against their will. And because there was no written law that protected black people, no laws were broken. Just in case some of you do not understand what I'm saying. At the time of slavery in the United States of America, there was no law to protect black people. Even though we weren't even deemed as people, we didn't have a voice, we didn't have any credibility. We were no less than dogs and cockroaches. So it was no crime to enslave us back then. So for people who believe that it was a crime, you have to make the difference between crime of humanity and crime of law. There has to be a law broken in order for it to be defined as a crime. And where slavery was concerned, no crime was committed by enslaving someone that looked like me, someone that was not white, because we had no protection by the land's law. So there was no crime committed. Let me get to what the actual question was about in March 2026, because it's not whether or not the assembly believed that it was a crime or it wasn't a crime. That wasn't even a question. The question was the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime in all of the world that ever took place? And by using the word the gravest, it simply meant that, do you agree that slavery was worse than the Holocaust, was worse than other genocides that was experienced by other countries, like, for example, Rwanda? That was a question. The question was not even whether or not it was a crime. The question was it the gravest mistreatment of human beings in the world? And 123 countries believe that it was. 3 countries believe that it wasn't. And 52 countries abstained from participating in yes or no. So let's separate the question that was actually asked, or the subject that was actually being debated, versus was slavery a crime, or whether it's a moral crime or a judicial crime. So technically, it seems as if none of that even played a part. The question was, let's say it was a crime. Was a transatlantic slave trade the gravest mistreatment of human beings in the existing world? And that was what the countries was answering on. In regards to slavery of black people, the UN admits, or it has been speculated that they admit that the language being used, whether we're using should have been a crime versus is a crime. So we're working with the word is and the words should have been. So let me say that in a sentence. The slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade, should it have been considered a crime? Or is the Atlantic slave trade a crime? If we take Bob Marley's music and in some of his words as gospel, there is one line that stuck out to me in the song, Redemption Song. And that part, the part that stuck out to me is sold to the merchant ship. And when we say sold to the merchant ship, it means an agreement was made, a trade was made. Africans actually receive something for the exchange of slaves. That's how I took that line. If someone who's watching this or listening to this take that line somewhere else or debunk the line totally, please make a comment, teach me, because on this channel, each one teach one. But let me stick to what exactly happened in March of 2026 and what the UN was discussing. I actually wrote notes for this. I normally never wrote notes for my vlogs. I just kind of speak off the top of my head what I know for a fact. But this time, because this has been recent history, I definitely have to look at what I wrote down today. Give me a second. So in March 2026, the UN General Assembly adopted a historic resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. The result of the vote, because the resolution moved from moral condemnation to a legal framework for reparations, the vote split along global north, global south lines. So, if I understood that correctly, the votes were split because of the resolution that most people expected. And this is where I disagree that slavery was a legal crime. Number one, in order for us to be compensated, especially financially, I understand that a lot of countries might have voted, yes, it was a crime because of financial benefits. But let's stay with the facts, because we are living in a modern society right now, and each of our society is guided by the rule of law, and those are laws that we have to follow. In order for us, Black people, to be compensated financially, which I would not mind getting some money for what my forefathers and foremothers have experienced, a judge would have to rule that a crime was broken. So let's play court for a minute. Let's say we got one lawyer in this side that's saying, yes, a crime was broken, and one lawyer in this side that's saying, no, there was no crime to be that was broken. And there's a judge in the middle. For the lawyer that's going to argue that there was a crime broken, the first thing the judge would want to see is proof that a crime was broken, and not moral proof. When it comes to courts, to compensate a person or a nation, we need written proofs. And that's where we as Black people would lose an illegal battle, for the simple fact that at the time when we were being enslaved, when we were treated like dogs and nobodies, there was no law in effect that says another human could not treat us like that. And that would definitely be the defense of the lawyer that was saying, no, a crime was not broken, because there is no proof that a crime was broken. If we're taking it spiritually and in a humane sense, morally, the mistreatment of a human being was always a crime against humanity, against moral values. Unfortunately, crime against moral values rarely have a payout. We just know deep in our soul, deep in our hearts, that the treatment is wrong. And wrong doesn't necessarily break laws when it comes to man-made legal system, courthouses, and judicial proceeding. And that is the unfortunate of this whole thing. So, based upon what I said, I am curious to hear what my subscribers have to say, what any newcomers have to say, anybody that finds this topic interesting or want to put their two senses in it. I welcome it. I was watching a video on YouTube, and there was a couple that was actually just Xing off country, says, don't go to this country because it says slavery was not a crime. And I could see where that advice could create tensions against races, and that was not exactly what played out at the UN Assembly. It wasn't whether or not slavery was deemed a crime. It was really, do we believe that the slave trade or the enslavement of Black people, do we believe that it should have the hierarchy of saying it's the gravest crime against humanity? That was really the question, and where the vote actually took place on that level. So I welcome anybody that wants to actually touch that level, just answer the actual question, what the assembly was about. And while we're at it, we could create a new question. Was slavery a crime? And if your answer is yes, the question is, do you believe that it was only a crime against humanity and not a legal crime? Or do you believe that it was a legal crime and a crime against humanity? You know, on this channel, I welcome positive feedback, negative feedback, agreement, disagreement, thumbs up, thumbs down, because at the end of the day, each one teach one. You can teach me something, I can teach you something. I'm not too old for that. My head is not too big for that. So that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it. And I welcome everybody's advice and look forward to hearing what everybody have to say. Until next time, peace.